Hey, this is Shawn and Michelle with the new Heroix podcast. I don't know what else to say. What up? I'm going to just keep ad-libbing until something comes up. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. We've just gotten our coffee. Yes, this is green coffee. Michelle, what are you drinking? I'm curious.
I am drinking a latte, and it's got honey, vanilla, and cinnamon. And just like the barista said, it tastes just like a Honey Nut Cheerio in the best way possible.
Wonderful. I've got kind of my own weird little mixture. I call it the Shawn. And every time I order it somewhere, I usually get an eyebrow raise and saying, "Are you sure you want this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I totally do." It is a dirty chai latte with mint syrup. It's a weird combination, but it's refreshing and spicy. And I love that weird mixture of cool and spicy. It's almost pepperminty, but not quite. I don't know. It wakes me up. It really wakes me up. It's very bright. So that's why we're considering calling this show Morning Coffee with Shawn and Michelle. So with that being said, we don't have a script. We're not really trying to do anything in particular here. Our main goal is really just to kind of talk about who we are, what we do. This is our first podcast. So, we're just going to kind of go with it. So let me go ahead and ask you a question. So who are you? Wait a minute. Who are you?
My name is Michelle Spray. I am Shawn Spray's wife. And, Shawn and I both have had this goal of helping others in our community and friends and family and just anyone and everyone that we encounter. And, I think it's great that Shawn has the ability to help others from a psychology standpoint with his degree. He's really able to speak to, mental health, any of the hurdles that we encounter and how to overcome them, which is a big part of wellness, I feel like, is just being able to mentally overcome those roadblocks that we set for ourselves. And, I myself, being a trauma survivor and also experiencing my own therapy privately, can speak to that as well. But I think for me, yoga has been the key that has really helped me to heal and grow, find peace and resilience. And so that's my hope, is in my way, being able to provide that healing and inspiration for others through yoga.
I love that. Yeah. It's been really cool to get to see my wife start doing her yoga business. This is something she's talked about for years. And there were times where it felt like it was just something that was kind of out of our reach, whether it was don't have the time, don't have the money, don't know where to even start. But it's been so cool to see her take on in addition to a full-time job, learning outside in her free time through a great program that's getting her Yoga Alliance certified, so that she can train individuals and help them really live their best lives through yoga. I'm not sure if you can hear our dogs eating and drinking. Right over here, we've got their bowl. This microphone, I think, is supposed to noise cancel, but if you're hearing, well, that's our dogs.
Morning coffee with the sprays in their pups.
Exactly. So yeah, I love that. So I guess if I had to ask you a follow-up question, because I don't even know what I'm doing. Am I the host? Are you the host? Are we the host?
We're the host.
We're the host. Okay.
You're the host.
I'm the host?
I think you're the host.
I'm the host. Okay. We just figured it out. I'm the host. So if I had to ask, what was it about yoga in particular that really, helps you? Why that versus, I don't know, literally anything else?
Sure. Honestly, I was first introduced to yoga when I was 13. I went on a trip, to visit family, and was invited to a yoga class. And I feel like that was the first time I felt true peace. I feel like, to be transparent, I've struggled with anxiety, depression, CPTSD, OCD. So with that comes a very active mind. And I feel that, that first time I was able to be in a yoga class, it was the first time my mind was able to kind of shut off temporarily. And it was such a nice feeling. And I found that even when I returned home, because at the time in Texas, yoga wasn't very prevalent. It wasn't easily accessible.
Yeah, I remember growing up, it was like if you were doing yoga in like the year 2005, you were some hippy dippy, like kind of person. You're like, people looked at you kind of weird, like yoga, like really, like it wasn't really mainstream yet.
And I think that's the thing is, I remember having a Yoga for Dummies DVD.
Love that.
That's how vintage or old school, but doing that DVD, finding YouTube videos. I even subscribed to yoga apps at the time, and technology wasn't nearly what it is today. But still practicing yoga at home, because there were some things that unfortunately I couldn't move past, if you will. Like I was in a certain environment where I couldn't do a whole lot about my circumstances, but I felt through yoga, that was my time. That was my time to be by myself, to reset, recenter. And I think that yoga literally saved my life, if I'm being honest. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, it sounds like it was like your way of finding meditation and mindfulness. It was your way of being able to, like you said, kind of turn off everything that was going on in your mind, going on around you, and kind of create that sacred space for yourself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's the wonderful thing too with yoga is, the more I've been studying, the more those missing puzzle pieces have put themselves together. I studied anatomy at the college. And, learned about the central nervous system. And it's so interesting when you see that overlap between Eastern and Western medicine. And when you see the overlap between yoga and what we know from a scientific standpoint, and you truly see the connection, the mind-body connection, and just how much yoga does actually help to restabilize your central nervous system, and it really does help you to relax. It puts that sympathetic nervous system back into a set stable place. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think this is kind of something that's reminding me of something I learned in my own programs too. Going through college and my psychology and counseling program, I learned a lot about the mind that was extremely helpful. One thing that I learned on my own outside of my programs was how much that mind-body connection really exists. I have to admit, being the science-oriented guy, when I first heard about mind-body connection, the first time I heard about it, I was pretty skeptical. I was like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I hadn't heard anything about it. I hadn't really read anything about it, so I wasn't too sure. But the more I studied it, the more I realized this is totally real. The nervous system is everything. I mean, like you said, anxiety is an overactive nervous system. Depression is an underactive nervous system. There's so much going on with the nervous system when it comes to your mind. And what I've learned is there's top-down approaches to helping yourself feel grounded, which is mind first, reframing, mindset shifts, learning how to see things differently, that kind of thing. And then your body can kind of follow. Then there's also what's called bottom-up approaches, such as yoga, where instead of focusing on the mind first, you focus on calming the body down. It creates enough space for the nervous system to begin to calm down so that you can get to the mind. And something I've learned too is that, like you mentioned, with trauma and anxiety, things like that, sometimes there is so much like static going on in your brain. It's hard to get through to this part sometimes whenever there's so much going on. That's why grounding techniques are so helpful. If it's yoga, box breathing, rooting your feet into the ground and picturing your mind literally in your feet, all of those kinds of things are excellent grounding techniques that can help that static, that volume, that background noise that's kind of going on. to start dialing it back, and then you can start to focus on what's going on in your mind, what sort of limiting beliefs are going on, what sort of self-identifications are happening, what sort of, worldviews need challenging. Sometimes you can go straight for that, and you kind of have to kind of play it, by ear, so to say. Like sometimes it's better to start from the top down. Sometimes it's better to start from the bottom up. I think that's incredible. It's showing, that you've learned in your own way that this helps you feel more grounded and peaceful. So that way you can begin to focus on what you need to do.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, sometimes when there's so much going on here, it's actually hard to, get to where you need to go to begin that work of reframing or, changing those distorted thinking patterns. Right.
Yeah.
And, I think that's the thing I love in my own personal yoga studies is learning that yoga, the asanas or the yoga poses as we know them, yoga is not just the poses.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that I love about it, though, is that the yoga poses are the introduction. The yoga poses are the first, step into mindfulness, that mind-body connection. Because like you said, with that bottom-up approach, when the mind is so active and you're focusing on your breathing and you're focusing on the yoga poses and the postures and the transitions, you're focused on that activity, you're releasing that body tension also and anything stored in the body. Some people will have experiences in yoga where they just start crying, and that's totally normal because the body does hold that trauma. And so when it gets released through yoga, I think that's the thing is yoga can really be therapeutic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've experienced it. And so I just think that, like you said, it's just great that, there are the different approaches. Like you said, you know yourself best, what's going to work best for you. If you're in a place where, I think I could, just, work on my mindset, I've got it. I know what I need to do. I'm going to use positive affirmations. I'm going to set those daily habits, and that's wonderful. And then there's also some people like where I was and still sometimes am is, I need to do the yoga. I need to do something active to quiet the mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can definitely be something that goes in tandem with each other.
Totally. In fact, I was going to say that I feel like, we have clients that see us just in the coaching sphere, and they're making excellent progress. It's really cool to see. Shout out to my clients. What's up? And then we've had individuals that have taken yoga from you too, and they find peace and calm and strength and things like that.
Yeah.
I find that if possible, really doing both is a really good way to go. And that's not just me trying to upsell you. Yes. It would be cool if you did, but really, truthfully, it's because if you can do the top down and the bottom up at the same time, this is my very scientific term for it. It's called the sandwich approach. And you get to do both the mindset and the grounding at the same time. You're creating the space in your nervous system through bottom up techniques and also coming down to your nervous system through the mind at the same time so that you can create mindset shifts, so that you can create more motivation, more confidence, more self-esteem, more discipline, create more clarity in your mind, as well as just not, like, as she mentioned, feel so much tension in your body. Yeah. So it's really a good kind of approach to do both. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I love that we get to, kind of help people in that way.
I love that.
So yeah, that's what I've got. I don't have much more on this particular topic. Do you have anything else you wanted to share?
I could talk about this topic forever, but we could definitely move on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have an idea.
Sure.
Why don't you ask me a question and see where it goes?
Okay. I guess I would ask you, because I think that's something that people wonder, yoga has been around for centuries, right? So even if you haven't done yoga, you've heard of yoga. You know what it is, more or less, even if you haven't done yoga. My question would be, what is personal coaching?
Man, that's that's a good question. And depending on who you ask, that could look like Tony Robbins yelling at you in front of thousands and thousands of people, apparently he helps people. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just saying that might be the image you get.
Right.
Or maybe it's like a Mel Robbins podcast where it's kind of that tough kind of, tough love. Like, I'm going to kind of kick your ass, but you're going to thank me for it later kind of thing. It's a very wide style and discipline. But if I had to give you just a short and simple answer of what life coaching is it is kind of like the sibling of therapy for me.
Okay.
I feel like that's the best way to describe it. If you go and look at the study of psychology, one of the first applications that we had for it was a clinical psychology kind of route, starting with Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Which some of his stuff's been kind of debunked now, but at least he kind of got the ball rolling,
Started, right?
He kind of got the ball rolling.
Yep.
So you got to give him credit for that.
Right.
And some of his stuff kind of stands up. Some of it, maybe we can kind of, say
Sure.
Thanks for trying,
He was the first one throwing darts, right?
Exactly. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And then it kind of moved on and we got behavioral psychology, which I think still to this day tends to be a very good standard. And then cognitive behavioral therapy, which kind of addresses mind and behavior. To this day now, even this is kind of back end kind of stuff, but a lot of insurance companies won't cover your therapy unless it is cognitive behavioral therapy because it's the most studied and has a lot of effective results and things like that. So really good stuff. But then it kind of moves on to like humanistic psychology. I don't know, let's think Maslow, Carl Rogers. If you're in the psychology world, you probably know who they are. If you don't, that's totally cool. I wouldn't expect anybody to know them. Just I'm a nerd and I like that kind of stuff. Sure. But their thing was they kind of started to take the psychology route and kind of flip it a little upside down.
Yes.
What they were doing was not so much why are these people suffering and how do we relieve that? Yes, it was actually to a degree that, but really what their focus was instead of, I'm trying to figure out how to word it, but their way of putting it was kind of something like, how can we help people thrive? Yeah. Exactly. Right. How do we get people from not just going from not doing too good to okay,
right,
but how do we get them to go to, I'm actually doing well. Right. I'm doing really well. And that started by studying individuals that were kind of in that way. The people that were kind of, as we call it now, living their best lives.
Right.
Like people.
What makes them stand apart? Yes. Why are they, not seeming to struggle as much?
Yes. Yeah. Why does this person seem more resilient in the face of stress? Why does this person seem more courageous? Why does this person feel more fulfilled in their personal life? What is it about these individuals that is honestly kind of making us look up to them and go, man, I kind of want to live a little like them. How do I get there? Mm-hmm. So life coaching, to kind of circle it all the way back, is about applying what I would call humanistic and positive psychology to clients to help them really improve their life. Yeah. That's what it's all about. I use my counseling background and my psychology background, and I can help individuals go from dealing with feelings of depression or anxiety or even traumatic experiences and help them find healing and peace from that. Very similar, not quite in the same way, but very similar to how a therapist does, because I have a lot of the same background. But more than just trying to treat what in the clinical world is often just called mental illness, I'm really focusing on how do I help you become your happiest, healthiest, most heroic self, personally and even professionally. I have a corporate HR background. I jumped into that because of my psychology degree. So I've learned a lot about like corporate training, about performance improvement in workplace, training managers, finding people that could be good candidates for leadership and how to help them get into that place, getting practical. And that's another element of life coaching is it's positive, helping you lift up, and it's also practical. The life coaching that I do often helps individuals process things, focus on their obstacles, and then find ways to overcome them, identify their goals, help motivate them to get there. Yeah. And then we do a commitment at the end of the session to one thing that they can practically do to help them move one step closer to that goal.
I like that.
It's a concept called behavioral activation. It's a psychology term. When you do the behavior, sometimes the motivation comes after. Sometimes you have to sometimes the motivation doesn't come first. I'm
Right.
sure you've been there.
Right.
But once you start cleaning your kitchen or whatever, then you find the motivation's kind of there.
Right.
And it can create new mindsets, new beliefs, new things just by living and moving your body. Again, kind of a bottom up approach. But moving your body in a certain way and committing to a certain action, you can change your mindset into a more empowered one, which gets you closer and closer to your goals. And that's what's been really cool with how coaching works, is that some of my clients have experienced different kinds of, kind of services where they're able to process some things, but sometimes they kind of stay stuck there, or they over focus on that. And then like everything kind of becomes like filtered through that lens, so to say, kind of keeps them stuck, ironically. Like they're making progress in some of those things, but also now they're kind of over focusing on it.
Right.
My goal is to kind of say, we will address the negatives that are your challenges, but there's a positive target to look at. There's a positive goal you're trying to go to. So let's not make the goal necessarily the negative stuff. Those are the obstacles in the way to the finish line that you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So that way the focus stays more positive, more empowering, more motivating.
Right.
It doesn't diminish the things that people are going through. It just helps to kind of put them in the proper perspective of, this is a goal. I need to overcome this challenge, but the goal is to be happier, healthier, and so on.
I like that. It's kind of like, instead of focusing solely on the negative or the past or the obstacle, yes, we work through that. There is a space for that, to acknowledge it, to grieve, to heal. But at the same time, it sounds like you're helping your clients, like you said, not stay stuck there.
Yeah.
And what is that horizon? What is that goal, at that bright sunrise? What are we looking towards, ahead? And it sounds like you have this action plan, if you will, and you help your clients, move the needle little by little, so that, progress is progress, no matter how small. And I think that's great that, you find that, like, you do acknowledge the obstacles, the struggles are very real, but at the same time, like you said, let's not stay stuck there. Let's keep going. Like you this is the now, and this is your life, and let's help you live that heroic life. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And on that point, sometimes there are sessions that are focused solely on healing. Yeah. Solely on grieving. Sometimes those sessions can be more about that rather than being so practical. Sometimes it's really about, sometimes you have to experience that. You have to go through the tough times. You have to allow yourself to feel those feelings. Right. Because if you don't, they'll kind of always be with you. So you have to kind of let yourself have that experience. And I can provide that too. Yeah. And like you said, it's that horizon that you kind of move towards. To me, it kind of reminds me of why we even call the company Heroix, because of the concept of the hero's journey, which is something that was started by Joseph Campbell, was the philosopher that wrote about this. He studied myths and legends and folk tales and stories, and noticed a pattern of how these stories go of an individual in their everyday life. Some kind of adventure gets thrust upon them, whether they wanted it or not. And then they experience challenges, they go through things, and sometimes even face great, danger or peril or something, and then transform into this new figure that allows them to kind of be the person that they were always meant to be, live their best life, and do the most good for the world around them. Think of anything from the Odyssey to the story of Achilles to even Star Wars. George Lucas actually, used that pattern to build the story of Luke Skywalker, Lord of the Rings, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, like all these stories that you've seen, they follow that, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. And what that's all about really is sharing a human experience. The idea is really that like these tales really speak to us and our psyche, because whether the story was from ancient Mesopotamia or somewhere in ancient China, or in Native American tales, or in medieval European tales, or what have you. Like, there is a common theme that runs through all these stories. It's a universal story about us, about people. It speaks to something very deep. And I think by acknowledging the challenges that we face as those obstacles in your hero's journey, the hero's journey sometimes is to be healed or find a potion, if you will, to heal yourself or heal others. It's really about ultimate growth and fulfillment, and about finding that best life. So yeah, I think that's what's kind of cool about the hero's journey and about heroics, is that it helps put those challenges that we face into perspective. It's a part of our heroic struggle. If I deal with depression or anxiety or trauma, or if I'm dealing with financial situations, or if I'm dealing with a relationship situation, or whatever the situations are that I'm facing, these are my obstacles, that are before me, that are at the end goal of wanting my finances to be improved, or having a better relationship, or a better career, or what have you. These are the things I must navigate to get there. It helps to kind of make me stay motivated and go, I want to fix these, because I want that thing at the end of the road. So,
I love that.
Yeah. And sorry, I know I'm going on a little more, but even as you mentioned, progress, sometimes it's inch by inch, right?
Yeah.
I often quote the Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu, that said that a journey of 1,000 steps, or 1,000 miles actually, starts with a single step.
Yep, exactly it. Yeah.
And whenever, especially when you're in kind of that place where you've been kind of broken down, you're still kind of in that hurting, you're kind of still licking your wounds from the last battle, so to say. Sometimes 1 inch forward, that's excellent progress. It's better than staying there and going, man, I give up. Even 1 inch forward is worth celebrating. One step forward.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing is, I think it's so easy for us to, put so much pressure on ourselves and, think, oh, I'm not where I wanted to be, or, oh, I haven't reached this goal by now, And I think that's something that is so critical, is learning that, everybody's path looks different, and that, growth is linear. And so maybe you'll feel like your growth has, skyrocketed in the last month. Maybe this month is a little bit tougher. Maybe it's a little bit harder to kind of go full steam ahead. And, we weren't built to go full steam ahead all the time. And so I think that's the thing is, it's wonderful, what you're helping your clients with, because I think that's the thing is it can be so hard doing it on your own, of just feeling like you're stuck. You're in this place where you're like, I don't even know what to do next. I don't even feel like doing this. I know I probably I want to do this, but I don't have the motivation. And so I think it's great because really, I mean, that's what really helps is even if you just have one person in your life that's just like, I'm rooting for you. Like, you've got this. Like, I'm here for you. Like, I'll be a listening ear, but on top of that, like, no, what are your goals, and let's get you there. I think that's excellent that you're providing that for your clients.
Thanks. Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point. It helps the hero's journey framework reminds us that progress isn't linear.
Right.
Because if the hero's journey was linear, it would just be like they start here, and it gets better and better and better and better and better until it's so good.
It'd probably be a boring story.
It would be a boring story, right? Yeah. I mean, even think of like Harry Potter. That's definitely not how his story goes, right? It's lots of ups and downs, right? And that's how our life works too. Is we gain ground, but then we hit a new challenge, and sometimes we kind of dip. Sometimes we even fall back a step or two in our growth, if you will. Like, if somebody's got a weight loss goal and they've lost 10 pounds, maybe they hit like kind of a rough patch and they gain 5 of it back, or maybe all 10 or something like that. It's easy to get unmotivated and to kind of feel like quitting at that point, because it's like, man, I'm losing my progress. But progress really isn't linear. If you can see this as just one challenge in the story, then you can start to go, okay,
I got this.
this sucks, but I'll find a way through this. I'll keep going, and then they'll lose the weight again. They'll keep going, and then later they might gain a little bit of it back. But if you look over time, the idea is that it will be overall, positivity, even with the dips here and there, even if there's a big dip. Yeah. And sometimes that happens. There could be a big dip, but you find a way to keep going and get to where you want to go. Yeah.
I love that. No, I mean, I think even like you said with the dips and stuff, tying it into yoga, I think it's something that I had heard and read about in books when I, was younger, and I didn't fully quite get when people were like, oh, be sure to live life out, take it off the yoga mat. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay.
Like, do I need to do tree pose in the office, or what's that mean?
I was like, I don't know what that means. But I will say, now, doing yoga as long as I have now, and, now that I have started my official yoga teacher training, we got a little cameo here.
All right.
We got a little baby girl.
She was like, I heard something I want to be a part of.
Yes, baby girl. But, I think that's the thing is, about yoga, and I took some, online workshops. I've, done the classes online.
Yeah.
And, and I've heard it too in some of the positive affirmations, during a yoga class. And I finally clicked one day, and I finally understood what that, living yoga off the mat really means. And, I guess I'm rambling. But
I'm curious though what it means.
Sure. I think that's the thing, right? Is like, when you're new to yoga, right? You join a beginner's yoga class, or maybe it's intermediate. And an instructor will be able to give you the beginner poses, right? Because everybody has different level of where they are in their yoga practice, and so I think that's the thing is when you're first starting out, right? The tendency is to look around the room. The tendency is to be like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Or oh, I wish I could do that. Like, oh, they're real flexible, Yeah. And I think that's funny in a way, because it's kind of applicable to our lives, right? Like we look around us and we
often compare ourselves. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's the thing that I love is in the beginning of class, an instructor will probably mention, hey, just focus on you. Your body, your limits, do what feels right for you.
Right.
And, try not to focus on others. And I think even just hearing that in the beginning of a yoga class and, being able to pay attention to your own practice, you'll feel so much better when you leave the mat. And I think that's the thing, right? Is that's one of those things that you can actually apply to your life outside of yoga. And, to give another example, I'll admit there are some yoga poses that I still can't do, but they're on my yoga wish list. Like I want to be able to do these one day.
Yeah.
And
I'm still trying to touch my toes. So
hey, you know what? That's okay, right? And I think that's the thing too, is like you don't have to be flexible to do yoga. You don't have to be athletic to do yoga. Yoga's for everybody, right? Yeah. Like we make adjustments.
Right.
We use the props, we make it accessible.
Yeah.
And but as far as, having that goal of like, oh, I really want to do this really cool pose, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's one called crow pose, and, feel free to look it up. I'm still learning that one.
Yeah.
I did a whole workshop. I spent like 3 hours on a Saturday trying to do this pose, right? And man, when I tell you I face planted, but you know what? I think that's the thing that I really liked about this workshop was they were talking about, your fear is what's keeping you from trying this pose. Your fear of face planting is probably why you haven't even tried the pose. And when you learn, hey, it did hurt my nose a little bit. But when you learn, okay, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
I can get back up. Mm-hmm. Well, that's, again, another thing you can apply to your life.
Totally.
Like, I have this goal, but I'm afraid of failing. But you know what? Even if you do, it's okay. You can bounce back.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing. It wasn't until like the last year where it finally clicked. And I was like, this is what they're talking about. This is what they're saying when they say living your life outside of the yoga mat, right? And I'm taking that off the mat. I'm like, oh, I get it now.
That means there's a philosophy underneath.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, that's why I love yoga. And, therapy has been huge for me. And, Shawn even has been giving me life coaching even before Heroix was launched. And I think that, the yoga, all of it, you
Yeah.
know, I think that's what's really helped me build the resilience, stress management,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think that's what's great is that, you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. And, you know, you might find that there are certain things you're more drawn to.
Yeah.
And that's great, you know, like focus on that. But I think the great thing is that every single aspect has a different, you know, thing that they can offer, a different aspect of that heroic journey of like how to build up to where you have that triumphant moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's incredible, like what you were saying, because there's a lot of overlap there too. You mentioned like comparing yourself, because we all do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's another kind of great thing about the hero's journey is that it is your journey.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's journey really does look different.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to compare.
Yeah.
I still do it too sometimes, where, you know, I look at someone who's got more this or more that or less this or less that. And, you know, it's easy to compare and go, man, I want that too.
Right.
But everyone's journey really is different.
Yeah.
We were all born into different circumstances. We didn't really get a say into how that looked.
Right.
And sometimes even the things that happen in our life, we don't have a whole lot of choice or control over.
Sure.
So it's kind of easy to compare, but everyone's journey looks different. And that's what it's all about, is owning your journey and saying, these are my circumstances. This is my life.
Yeah.
And still saying, and I deserve the best life that I can have.
Yeah.
And I often focus on a goal, you know, like I've helped people get new jobs. I've helped people improve their interview techniques. I've, you know, even gone on the career side. And I love to do that too. But one of the kind of, you know, key things about the hero's journey is it's kind of like the treasure is this thing you see at the end, and often they get it or something like that. But really, the real treasure is the transformation that happens on the inside on the way there.
Yeah.
And that's what I help clients do too, is own their journey and transform in that way. Same with you. And that fear of failure, I want to speak to that too, because I see that a lot as well.
Right.
Either with clients that I'm currently seeing that are kind of afraid to do something different, there's always, I never tell a client, this is 100% gonna work.
Right.
You know, I never guarantee anything. I won't guarantee anything to you. There's always risk. There is always risk. So don't make rash decisions, but make educated, strategic decisions. That's where you go, okay, what do I stand to gain? What do I stand to lose? What are the odds, give or take? Is it worth the risk, right? That's how I kind of approach it too.
Yeah.
But people can get stuck in that fear place. And even with people that I've spoken to that haven't quite started coaching but are kind of thinking about it, often it is fear that kind of keeps them stuck there. Sometimes it's other reasons. It could be like, you know, genuinely, I'm okay right now. I don't think I need it, or I, you know, this or that. But what I've noticed is that for some people that are kind of right there, or they're not too sure, they kind of want it, they're kind of curious. It's fear. It's fear of the unknown. Is this going to work for me? This and that. And it does kind of tend to keep people kind of in that stuck place, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn at a certain point that fear is part of the process.
Oh, yeah.
I think the quote is, be scared and do it anyway.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that actually helps build resilience, build strength. And especially for someone who deals with anxiety, that can be very empowering.
Oh, yeah.
Because then that anxiety, that anxious thinking pattern that we tend to get stuck in, that usually tends to keep us kind of playing small, playing safe, it doesn't have that much power over our lives anymore. It's, in a sense, a form of exposure therapy. You know, being smart and strategic with it, you can use that mindset of be scared and do it anyway as a form of exposure therapy in building resilience against anxiety, which is, if you've ever struggled with it, such as myself or Michelle or others, it can be
Debilitating.
I was going to use another word. It can be a bitch.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. It really hard. Can. It's like it dominates your whole life. What if this, and what if that, and what if I fail, and what if they say no, and what if, and then you just stay small, and you think the anxiety is keeping you from risk, and you're miserable.
Right.
Right. To be able to say and hear that thought process going on and going, but I think it'd be worth it. I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Knowing this could backfire.
Right.
It could.
Right.
But it's a small risk, or it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah.
Even as you mentioned, even if you fail, and this is something I tell my clients too, like let's say they want to have a tough conversation with somebody to set boundaries. I'll say, I think that this is the right choice. I think you should talk about it. And in the best case scenario, they'll hear you and respect it, and it will improve. In a worst case scenario, they won't respect it. They could even start an argument or kind of come back at you, and it could create conflict. I'll tell people that. I want them to know the risk of what they could come against, trying to do good things. Oh, I was like, I heard a little vibration. I was like, what's that? I was like, but where was I in my train of thought? The
risks involved and how you let your clients know, like, hey, the best case scenario, it could go this way. And they listen. And the worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
we'll cut that.
Yes, we will. I was like, that totally threw me off.
Liberio.
Yeah, right. But even in those failures, there's something valuable.
Yeah.
Let's say you do have a conversation with somebody about your boundaries and they don't fully respect it. Yeah. That is a learning lesson. That is a lesson in saying, maybe this person doesn't fully respect my boundaries, or maybe I came across too harsh. Like if I talk to somebody and say, well, how did it go? And they're like, well, I yelled at them, and okay, maybe there was a tweak that we could have done here,
Yeah.
So there's always lessons.
Yes.
What I say is there's not losses, there's only lessons,
I like that.
And even whenever you don't get that goal that you were hoping for by doing something, let's say it doesn't quite go the way you want, there's always something you can learn from it. Like a sports team that loses a game, we'll go back and watch the footage and see, okay, you see here, this is where they sacked the quarterback, or this is where the pass was missed.
Right. Or this was wide open on this side.
Right. It's review the footage and learn from those losses. Yeah. That way, you're still leveling up. You're still gaining experience. You can turn anything like alchemy. You can kind of turn it into gold, right?
Yeah. And I like that because, something too, going on, about boundary setting or any goal really, I feel like, like you said, there's lessons, even if it doesn't go the way planned, but, and I think that's the thing is, let's say it doesn't go as planned. I think instead of focusing so much on what you can't control, which is others, right? You can't control how they react. But, I think being proud of yourself, of celebrating the fact that, okay, this was scary. Like this was scary. I've never done this before, or like I'm intimidated by this person, or I'm scared of their reaction, but I did it anyways.
Yep.
I put myself first. I had enough self-respect and self-love to say, hey, this isn't how you treat me, or whatever the boundary may be. And, I think it's so great that you're there to help everybody on their hero's journey, to be their little Jiminy Cricket almost, like to kind of tell them, hey, like, but wasn't that nice?
Yes.
Like, didn't that feel good?
Yes.
Being able to say, hey, not okay. And, focusing on those moments, even if they don't feel like wins on the outside or on paper, but recognizing that it still was a win because you still did something scary, but something that is going to help you build confidence.
Yep.
Confidence grows, courage grows in moments of fear.
Yes.
When you overcome that fear and when you actually do something that does kind of seem scary, and even if it doesn't go the way you planned, it gets easier the more you do it, because you're like, okay, well, that was kind of the worst that could have gone, and I still survived. I'm still here. I'm okay. And I think that's the thing, right? Just like my face plant, right? Like, I'd wanted to do this pose for like 2 or 3 years, and I was like, well, I don't have the upper body strength, or I don't think I have, this or that. My core isn't that strong. And then I finally learned, oh, actually, it's more about your joints and stacking.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, but I'm going to face plant. That's going to hurt really bad. But you know what? We put a pillow and we're like, okay, we're going to have baby steps, right? So in this yoga pose, right? Okay, there's the risk, there's the fear.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it anyways. And I did hold it for like 5 seconds. It was great.
There you go.
Before I face planted. But I learned, okay, this is the threshold. This is where I need to stop before I fall forward.
Yep.
So there was my lesson.
Yep.
And 2, when I did hit the pillow, thankfully I didn't hit the floor, right? I hit the pillow. So at least it wasn't as much of an impact. And I almost feel like applying it to your coaching practice, it's almost like, somebody may have their yoga pose or their crow pose in life that they're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And, maybe they, I can't because this person is going to get upset, or because of this type of relationship I have with them, or because I've never done this before and they're going to take it wrong. And it's almost like you are the one who is giving them the encouragement. You're the external influence to say, you do got this.
Yes.
Here's your pillow.
Yes.
I'm going to help you, even if it doesn't go as you plan. Here's your pillow.
Yep.
You're going to get back up, and it's going to get easier the next time you do it.
Absolutely.
And, I think that's great. I love the fact that, when Shawn and I first met, we knew, even at 19 years old, right, we had these big dreams and goals to help people. And that was one of the things that drew us to each other, was this heart for others, this desire to help in any way we can, right? And maybe, some of the dreams that we had, were something that may or may not be attained, right? I had this dream of going to Africa, and I was going to, do some work there, but life happens, and the hero's journey for me looked different, and I'm happy with it still. So I think that's the thing is, I love that, through Shawn's studies, in psychology and counseling, he can really help with that mental health aspect, and the emotional well-being. And, I, have more of the, anatomy and physiology, the nutrition aspect, the yoga aspect. So it's great because they really do go hand in hand.
They totally do.
And I love the fact that, using our natural interests, talents, and skills, right? It's kind of a very well-rounded approach. So, in a hero's journey, you got to have the crew that's going to help you out. So you're not on your own. You're going to have, everybody has their key part, but, you've got that support, and you got to pack your rations.
Yes,
and
you do.
got to make sure you've got your equipment and your gear, and you got to make sure that you're, you have everything you need. And so in a way, I love that, we can offer two it's kind of different aspects, but, at the same time, very effective, and especially when put together.
Oh, yeah.
But, I think it's just great that, things that Shawn and I have just been passionate about for a very long time, it's so nice to finally be in a place where it's like, oh, I can finally actually do something with the things that I've naturally been, either studying on my own free time or through college, and finally being able to put it into practice.
Yes.
Like, oh, I can help people with this now, And
right.
So I think that's a great thing. I love the name that we've picked, Heroix, because I really feel like it really does capture what our goal has always been from the start. Our goal has always been to provide wellness for anyone and everyone, and, to really help others feel like, they're not just letting life, happen around them, but that they can be the main character of their own story.
Yes.
And, even in every hero's journey, there's always a moment where the hero is kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, or, oh, I might have to turn back. But it's so great that, we're there for everyone, and we can say, no, you've got this. Like, okay, yeah, the dragon might have, blown some hot fire at you, and you had to duck and cover, but guess what? They've got a weak spot.
Right.
And we're going to find it.
We're going to find it.
And I think that's the thing, is just helping everybody really live their best, happy, healthy, and heroic life.
Yes.
And, I'm so grateful for everyone's support, and, just really thankful that, like Shawn said, these are dreams that we've had for over like what? I don't even know.
More than 10 years. More than 10 years, I think.
And it's so nice that, I think our story even is a prime example, right?
Yeah.
In this economy, and with layoffs and stuff, it really created the best opportunity to finally chase after these dreams. And
funny enough, right?
And that's exactly it, right? Is in the face of adversity, it's like, okay, well, okay.
The call to adventure for me came in the form of a layoff.
Right.
I was living my daily life, unhappy, in a sinking company, thinking about leaving, and then they made that decision for me, right? And that's how it often goes, is something gets thrust upon the hero.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, I've been thinking about this for a while.
Yeah.
Now's the time to start my heroics journey, right? And our heroics journey.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, Shawn started heroics first, and I honestly, since I was about 15 or so, I was like, man, I want to be able to teach yoga to others. I want to be able to share this peace, this resilience, this mindfulness, this mental clarity to others that I've experienced, being in the belly of the beast, if you will. Like, I was in a place where I couldn't exactly escape certain things just because how life is. But, I just felt like, man, I want to help others feel this sense of peace no matter what they're going through.
Yeah.
And, this was always a dream, like Shawn said, that just seemed like a pipe dream. Like, okay,
right.
Yeah, sure, being a yoga teacher, that sounds fantastic. It'll never happen. I don't have the money to do the teacher training in person and all this stuff. I had my own mental hurdles, right? And then, Shawn encouraged me and was just like, well, what's stopping you? And you know what? Honestly, I had to, let go of previous, misconceptions I had about yoga teacher training. And, through lots of hard work, found the right program. And oh my gosh, it has been amazing. I've been so happy. I've been so thankful, for everybody who has done the yoga classes, either in person with me or online. It warms my heart so much when at the end of a yoga session, somebody tells me, Michelle, like, you have no idea how much this means to me that you're taking the time to do this, or I had another student told me, oh my gosh, I felt so relaxed after the end of our yoga session. I put some music on and I immediately fell asleep.
Yeah.
And and it's just, it's so great knowing that it's like, man, it's wonderful knowing like I'm helping share this with others. I'm helping others feel the same level of peace and comfort and resiliency through my own experiences, and just sharing it with others. It's just been incredible.
You put it so well. I mean, the coaching techniques that I share with my clients are the same things I've applied to myself.
Yeah.
When I was going through the hardest of times, when I was at my heaviest weight, whenever I was at my most depressed and anxious and dealing with grief that I hadn't fully processed about how certain things went in my life and certain losses that I've had, I was in a pretty bad place, honestly. But by applying what I learned in my college programs, the studies that I did outside, the motivational techniques that I applied to myself, I've learned how to get to the place that I'm at now. And I'm so proud of where I'm at right now. And I'm proud of where you are at right now. And I know I've still got more, progress to go. My journey isn't done yet, right? There's still more to go.
Yeah.
But to borrow from Harley Davidson, it's not about the destination sometimes. It's really about the journey, and just to be able to look back at your progress is great. To be able to take what you've applied in your own life that's based in empirical science. Let's just be dirty about it. There are studies that show this and that. It's effective. It works. It's there. There's the literature. And then through personal experience, because sometimes that is just hard to beat, is just personal experience. So by taking what we've learned in our own lives to help us get into a better place that is proven effective and help people achieve their version of that in their life, it really is one of the most amazing, rewarding things.
It really is.
It really is like a dream come true.
It is.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, the hero's journey. I mean, if anybody has seen my lotus flower tattoo, lotus flowers actually grow out of mud, and I think they are a symbol in multiple cultures, but really it does speak to the idea that we can grow even in the muddiest of waters and bloom into something beautiful. And, I think that's the great thing, like Shawn said, is that, even if we had moments, everybody has something that they've gone through in life, that tragedy, crisis, moments of grief, trauma, unfortunately it's more common than we might think,
Much more.
And, for the longest time, I think it's been taboo. And I think that's the thing that's hard, is when you're silently suffering, and you're going through these things and you feel like you can't share them, or you feel either shame or what have you. It's great that even though these things happen, like Shawn and I are really trying to use those things that we've gone through and show others, like, hey, yes, it is so tough some days. Some days are going to be harder than others. But just showing people, that there is healing, that you can still live your heroic and best life, is huge. And I think that's what Shawn is saying too, is like, we've been able to take our own life experiences and, what's worked for us, what hasn't worked, and trying to really put together the best of everything for the sake of helping others. It's like, okay, well, in our minds, we're like, well, okay, I've gone through this. What didn't work? What did work? And taking those personal experiences and applying them into the coaching or the yoga affirmations, using those opportunities to instill life into others of like, hey, it's tough, but you've got this and you're not alone. And so, I just, it warms my heart, and I love this company.
I love it too. I love it too.
Yeah.
And even thinking on what you said earlier about the dragon and being in that place where it feels like there's not a way forward. I think we've both been in a place in life at times where it feels as though the dragon knocked us on our ass. We're burnt to a crisp,
The sword is all the way across the room.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of that moment in the movie where it's like, it looks like all hope is lost, right? Everybody gets there, right? You can think of almost any movie, any story, any book, any video game, whatever that you've ever played. It doesn't even have to be fantasy. It could be like a drama or something like that, or even people, we all kind of get there.
Yeah.
But and that can help, that when we're in that place, it really does sometimes feel like, man, there's no way forward.
Right.
But what we've learned through our own scrappy methods is that there is always some way forward. There is always some little thing. The camera pans and there's the escape route, or or somebody comes in and distracts the dragon so you can grab your sword and kaboom, or whatever. Right. Like there's always something, right? Sorry. There's always some.
It's okay.
There's always,
I've had my moments too.
There's always something where, and that's something I encourage clients with too, is that there is always some way forward.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Even if you have to crawl on your belly.
Yep. Even if you're like crawling for your life at a snail's pace, we will find it. We will do it. Yeah. Right. And because we've been there, we know what it's like. We will help you slay your dragon. We will help you find the treasure, destroy the ring, defeat the evil emperor in your life. We will help you, rise through the ranks of your order, your company, whatever it is, we will help you with that. Yeah. We will help you with that because we've been there. We know what it's like. And that's, Heroix is fantastic. I know I'm tooting our own horn here, but I love it. I love what we do. I love what we get to help people with. And I think that's about all I've got.
Yeah, I think
we planned for 20 minutes and we're at an hour. So
we just love you guys.
Right? Yeah. So thanks so much for watching. Yeah. This is our first podcast. Not even sure where we're going to post it yet, but we'll figure it out. If you liked it and there's a way to like this, then give us a like. Right? Comment your favorite parts. Save this if you need to come back and watch it. If you can't do the whole hour at a time, save it so you can come back and watch it again later. If you haven't followed us already, we'd love it if you do. We're on Instagram primarily. I have a TikTok. I don't really get on there, but if you want to follow me on TikTok, great. But
Heroix Coaching is also on Facebook too.
We're on Facebook. That's right. And if you're interested in yoga services, in coaching services, or a bundle deal, reach out to us. You can do that by DMing us on Instagram or reaching out to our emails. Mine is heroicscoaching@gmail.com, and yours is
heroicsyoga@gmail.com.
There we go.
All right.
Thanks so much for watching, y'all.
Bye.
Till next time. Hope you live a happy, healthy, and heroic life.